All right, so we will go ahead and begin. So good morning, everybody. We're really excited to be here. I'll start off by introducing myself. My name is Manuel Morales. I am the communications specialist at Workforce Solutions Cameron, and will be your moderator for today. Welcome everyone to the Multimedia and Communications Virtual Seeds Forum. This forum is part of Workforce Solutions Cameron's award-winning Seeds initiative. In case you're wondering what SEED stands for, that stands for Students Empowered to Explore and Develop Skills. The purpose is to facilitate opportunities for career exploration and job readiness to students across Cameron County. We want to expose students to valuable information on the careers that they're keen to pursue after high school. We want to connect them with great professionals in the field, in this case, the multimedia and communications industry. Now, today's forum is a collaboration between us, Workforce Solutions Cameron, but also Harmony Public Schools. I'd like to especially thank Ms. Iana Jimenez, the CTE technology teacher at Harmony, for working with us to make sure that this special day does in fact happen. I do want to just let everyone know that this forum is being recorded. We plan to use this to make a video, put it on YouTube, and send to our other great school partners in Cameron County. Now, to kick us off, I'd like to introduce the principal at Harmony Public Schools, Mr. Maksat Altiev, for some opening remarks.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, first of all, for this great opportunity. I know the current situations make it difficult to have it in person, but it brings, I think, like other opportunities, benefits where now we can engage from our rooms or classrooms without like having to have that maybe travel. So there's some loss, but I think there's also some benefits that come with it. And I think in any industry, like all the industries got affected with this. And I think in this industry as well, the demand or the need for the arts, the communications, the multimedia productions, they don't change, but also I think increased. So the things that now being a lot more like digitally connected, or a lot of things are now engaged and produced and consumed digitally. I think that brought me the demand, and even possibly the work environment possibly changed as well. So I hope this will be a great day for students to learn what it's like to become this career, and what it's like to continue working. What does the work environment look like? So it's the change in the world. It happens, right? Like it continuously happens, and this year I think made that significant changes in a short term that I think can give students a perspective that in a long term that things can happen as well. So maybe things that can change in maybe in 10, 20 years now are changing in a really short time, within a year, with the things that are going on. So it's of course stressful, but at the same time, I think it's a challenge where we all have like a great kind of a learning opportunity. And I'm glad that we were able to put this event together with the professionals from the field to share their experience on what they're doing, how they got here, and that will give a lot of insight for our students to, as they're considering and deciding their future careers. So again, thank you all for your time, and I will try to stick around as long as possible. I would like to learn as well. As a former college counselor, I still talk to students about their career choices and their college choices. So I would like to learn as well and kind of share it along later on with the students that I engage with. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Now, I'd like to now introduce the Regional Director at Workforce Solutions Cameron, Mr. Henry Castillo, who would like to share a few words. Mr. Castillo, do you think you can unmute yourself?
the wonderful world of Zoom technology
Yeah.
and online video conferencing. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Henry Castillo. As Mehmet mentioned, I am the regional director here for Workforce Solutions Cameron. We're very happy that y'all could join us today to share this information with your students. We're very proud of our SEEDS program, as Mehmet referenced earlier. In fact, just last week we were notified that our program won a national recognition for Youth Program of the Year from the National Association of Workforce Development Professionals. We're very happy, and somehow we're going to receive that award next week at their virtual conference. So we'll see how that goes. But a large part of a growing part of our SEEDS initiative is sharing, doing career exploration and sharing with students the opportunities that are available in different careers and different industries. In particular, through this forum of industry forums, we're really excited about being able to put before students actual industry professionals that are within those industries that can share their stories, their experiences, their struggles, and how they made the decision to go into these particular careers. So we're really happy that students get to hear this in a setting that's conducive to them to be able to listen, to be able to ask questions. And so I want to thank the Harmony School staff for allowing us to partner with you to present this information. I want to especially thank all of the presenters that are going to be presenting today. Thank you for taking the time to present your information to the students. It's very important that students learn firsthand and hear firsthand about experiences from people who are actually doing those jobs in that particular industry, because that will help them formulate whether this is something that they want to pursue or just learn more about. Some students may not know about any of the careers in this industry. Some of them may only know about the things that they only see on television or movies, but one of the things I also like about these forums is it exposes students to different types of careers within a respective industry, not just the ones that are the highest profile, because not all students are going to be able to do those high profile jobs, because typically those high profile jobs are very few and far between. But it's a good opportunity for them to know about all the different types of careers, or as many different types of careers within a respective industry, so that they can say, well, I'm really shy, so I don't know that I want to be in front of a camera. Well, there's lots of jobs behind the camera. There's lots of jobs. I think we've all discovered over these last several months, there's a lot of tech jobs and video jobs that don't require a person to be in front of camera, but are very critical to the people that are needing to be on camera. Just right now as we speak, we have one of our media specialists who's working with one of my staff who I was supposed to have a meeting with at 8:30, but he couldn't get his camera and his computer up and running. It's just a blank screen. Imagine if we didn't have people that had that skill to be able to do that. So again, I want to thank the presenters today. I want to thank Harmony for partnering with us on this, and I hope that we have a very fruitful and positive experience today. And for those of you students that are listening, please ask questions. Raise your hands, click the little raise hand button for a question, enter the question in a chat. We want to be able to address as many questions as you might have for this respective industry and the careers that our presenters are going to share with you. So again, thank you all for partnering with us today, and I look forward to a very fruitful presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Castillo. And let's talk a little bit more about our great presenters today, because at the end of the day, that's why we are here. So at this time, I would like to introduce our amazing panel of experts. I would really like to thank them for giving their valuable time today. I know I'm excited. I can imagine you guys are excited too, to hear about the insight and the knowledge in the field of multimedia and communications. So we'll go ahead and get started. The first person that I'd like to introduce, we're going to introduce them one by one with a short bio. We'll begin with Miss Lynda Lopez. Now, Miss Lynda Lopez is a Rio Grande Valley native with 20 years experience in higher education, and she just celebrated her first year anniversary at Texas Southmost College, where she currently serves as the Executive Director of Advancement in Marketing and leads a team of marketing and media professionals. Higher education is a second career for Ms. Lopez. She is also an Emmy Award-winning journalist, having worked with NBC in Washington, D.C., KTBC in Austin, Texas, and KGBT here in the Rio Grande Valley. She covered some top national stories, including the Lorena Bobbitt trial. That's definitely an interesting one. The Mayor Barry cocaine arrest, the Latino riots of 1991, and the Million Man March on Washington. At TSC, Lopez is in charge of all marketing initiatives and responsible for coordinating internal and external communications. Under her direction, the media and marketing team works to get the TS story of access and success out to a broader audience and promote the college, student, faculty, and program successes. Lopez is a 1981 graduate of Texas State University and has served in various marketing management positions at both the University of Texas Pan American and Texas State Technical College. She also serves on the board of the Texas Association of Community College Marketers and the RGV chapter of the American Advertising Federation. Ms. Lynda Lopez, thank you so much for being here today. Next, we'd like to introduce Ms. Clara Benitez. Ms. Clara Benitez is an evening anchor and investigation reporter for Local 23 News / KVEO. Clara moved to the Rio Grande Valley in August of 2018 as a general reporter. Clara has had many roles at KVEO, including morning reporter, fill-in anchor, fill-in weather, and weekend anchor / producer. Clara is originally from San Diego, California. Born to immigrant parents from Mexico and Honduras, Clara went on to attend Arizona State University to pursue her dreams of becoming a journalist and her parents' dream of getting a college education. As a first-generation student and the first in her family to graduate from college, Clara focused on Latino, immigration, and border issues while at school, and her first on-air job was in Oregon. Today, Clara's goal remains the same: be the voice of the voiceless and amplify the Latino community. Ms. Clara Benitez, thank you so much for being here today. Next, we'd like to introduce Ms. Nubia Reyna. Nubia Reyna is a reporter and translator for the Brownsville Herald. She covers city and government as her main beat, but also covers crime, art, education, and business. She graduated cum laude with a bachelor's degree in journalism and dual minor in art and translation from the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. She is currently full-time pursuing a Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing while also working full-time as a journalist. She was the recipient of the Sustainability Fellowship in 2019 as a graduate student focusing on gender equality. Nubia has worked as a contributing reporter and translator for the New York Times, covering migration in the Rio Grande Valley. Prior to joining the Herald, she was also a reporter at the UT-RGV student newspaper, The Writer, for 4 years. She was also a communications and public relations intern at the at the Brownsville Public Utilities Board for 6 months and a public relations assistant at UT-RGV Marketing and Communications. Nubia is passionate about gender and feminism and hopes to change her community and the world by telling the stories of those who have been marginalized, such as women of color. She migrated from Matamoros at age 17 and lives alone with her 2 beloved rescue dogs, Pinky and Blue. She does not know how to cook and does not care to learn. She has recently learned to embrace her strong accent. Thank you so much, Ms. Nubia Reyna, for being here today. And last but certainly not least, I'd like to introduce Mr. Nathan Burkhart. Mr. Nathan Burkhart is the Director of Marketing and Small Business Development at the Brownsville Community Improvement Corporation, the Type B Economic Development Organization for the City of Brownsville. He strategically develops programs and incentives for startup growth and development in Brownsville with the end goal of creating a sustainable ecosystem of entrepreneurship in the Rio Grande Valley. Nathan is a graduate of UT Austin Red McComb School of Business, where he earned a BBA in marketing and a minor in government. He received his MBA from the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley. Nathan has previously worked in the Texas House of Representatives, where he served as a digital director for the Mexican American Legislative Caucus and for State Representative Trey Martinez Fisher, representing San Antonio, Texas. Nathan also briefly worked in the photovoltaics industry in Austin. Nathan volunteers as a board member for the Community Development Corporation of Brownsville, Come Dream, Come Build, On his days off, you can find him biking, home brewing, camping, or thinking of new ways to invest in the human capital of his community. Mr. Nathan Burkhart, thank you so much for being here today. Now, right before we begin, I'd like to go over some housekeeping rules, if you will. I'd like Ms. Iana Jimenez to talk briefly about these housekeeping rules. Because we're doing this forum virtually, I like for all of us to be on the same page. Ms. Jimenez?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Harmony Public Schools is excited to participate in today's forum. We are honored to have these 5 wonderful guests representing the Multimedia and Communications Forum. We value their time and expertise, so let's make the most out of this conversation with them. Students, I do want to make sure that you understand my expectations for today's events. Please ensure that your camera and microphones are off during the panel discussion. Don't worry, you will have time to ask your questions towards the end. So listen closely to the presenters and represent well the values of Harmony School of Innovation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jimenez. Now, let's get started, everyone. I know I'm excited. So we're actually going to start in the order that we introduce each panelist. So the order is Ms. Lynda Lopez, Ms. Clara Benitez, Ms. Nubia, and Mr. Nathan. So Ms. Lynda Lopez, first question. We've introduced your professional background. Now, let's talk a little bit about your current position. I know that we mentioned it in the bio, but what does it truly encompass?
I currently lead a team of 10 media and marketing professionals for the college, Texas Southmost College. Go Scorpions. I have writers, I have graphic designers, I have video and editing experts. And we all work together. There's a lot of teamwork involved in making sure that we are promoting the college and all our successes. My job is to encourage, to lead, to manage, to make sure that we're meeting all our deadlines. Deadlines are a constant in this business. And we're always having to make sure that our clients, and our clients, I mean the people on my college campus, that includes enrollment, that the faculties, that everybody's needs are getting met in terms of getting their programs promoted, or brochures made, or any collateral that is items that they might need to help promote themselves and their programs to students, very much like the ones that are in our audience today.
Awesome, thank you. Ms. Clara Benitez?
Hi there. So essentially what it entails, correct? So I've kind of moved up the ladder in the last 2.5, 3 years. But right now I'm the evening anchor / investigative reporter. So essentially I, anchor the evening newscast, which is the 6:30 and the 10 p.m. And in between that, we're constantly on social media, making sure we're pushing on social media, our articles. But besides that, obviously I'm not producing, if I'm not helping produce, I am essentially putting in FOIAs and public information requests and making phone calls and setting up, what she was talking about, the deadlines, right? A story that I'm working on, whether that be, something easy that I can turn in that week, or something that maybe is taking, a few months. But essentially that's kind of what it entails. A lot of deadlines that she had mentioned, because, things have to go on the air at a certain time. And if it's not on, by the time it's going to go on, then you get a black screen. So once you get there, it's deadlines to deadlines. But yeah, that's essentially what we do. We read the news and make sure we give accurate information to our viewers who are watching, obviously via television or either on their cell phone.
Yeah, and I'd like to add to that. I interned at a news station in Lubbock, Texas, and if there's one thing that I learned about television is that everything is timed. And it is timed to the second. So they have a certain amount of time to go through their telecast, and they have to end at a certain time. So if they don't, it'll go straight, they'll get cut off. So it's really, really interesting. And so deadlines are so important, I'm sure, in all of y'all's field, but especially you.
On TV, yeah.
Yeah, and TV, yes. Ms. Nubia, Reyna.
Well, for my job, I have to be looking, since my main beat is city and government, for example, city meetings, I have to be looking at the agendas, what they're posting, and then checking constantly on the mayor's Facebook page, on the city commissioners, to see what they're doing, if there's something that we can do for news. And I'm always also reading emails. We get a lot of emails from people with story ideas, or that they want to do a profile on someone, like, hey, my niece just did this at school, I think this is cool. So we try to always be on the constant lookout for stories, and also deadlines, because sometimes people think, oh, it's a newspaper, you don't have a deadline, you can take the whole day to do what you want, but you have to submit your story at a certain time, because it has to go through the editor, and then through the designers, and then it has to be online, and then on print too. So that's pretty much what I do.
Awesome, thank you. Mr. Nathan Burkhart?
Sure. So my job kind of entails two different components. So there's the marketing component, which is just really marketing our incentives, resources, and programs to whether that be the small businesses in the area or businesses that we're trying to attract to bring into Brownsville. The other half of my job entails more of economic development side, and that's sort of actually developing and creating the incentive programs to really what we're trying to do is spur an ecosystem of entrepreneurship here, not just in Brownsville, but in the Rio Grande Valley. Capitalizing on, the new space and other components that are driving really the future of the workforce here in Brownsville.
Awesome, thank you so much for sharing. Moving on, Ms. Lynda Lopez, could you maybe talk to us a little bit about so kids can put into perspective exactly what it is you do. Could you talk to us a little bit about a typical day? What does it look like, and what would you say you like most about your job?
Okay, I'm in a lot of meetings. I think a lot of us have to participate in meetings. We work on it's a lot of teamwork across the entire campus. And so I'm in meetings with all the different divisions, making sure their needs are being met. I'm in meetings with my different team members to get progress reports on their different projects. We're always juggling any number of projects and trying to meet deadlines, trying to make sure the president's happy, trying to make sure our clients are happy. I run our team like a public relations firm, like an advertising firm. And so everybody's got responsibilities, and my job is to just make sure that everybody's on task and everything is coming together finally in the end. I think the thing I love most about my job, there's probably two things. Seeing final results, the final product. There's so much to be proud of. I have an amazing team of people. They're young professionals, and they excel at what they do. And so it's always rewarding to see the final product, and especially to put it on social media and see all the feedback that it gets and the shares. And when something is successful, especially our videos or our great graphic design work. The thing I would say that I love the most about my job is that in my stage of my career, but something that I've always firmly believed in throughout my lifetime is that you are always encouraged to give back. I tell my team members to give back. If you have a knowledge or a skill, it is your responsibility to hone that skill and then pass it on to other people. So I am very proud of the fact that I am always mentoring not only my staff members, but mentoring other people across, I have my friends' kids that I'm mentoring across the country, or I really believe in giving back your knowledge. And so I'm constantly trying to make sure that I'm passing on and preparing my team members to become tomorrow's leaders on our team. That's the most fulfilling thing that I can do as a professional.
Thank you, thank you. Miss Clara, the same question for you. If you're on time, if you're scheduled to go live at 6 p.m., the day starts way earlier than that, right? It isn't just like doesn't work like that.
Right. No. Yeah. You have to go way earlier. My day starts at 2. I work from 2 to 11. That's the night side shift. Obviously, there's 3 different shifts in TV. The morning shift, which I used to go in at 3 in the morning. And then you get out at noon, right? And then you have the day shift, which is you go in at 9 and then you get around 6. And then you have the night shift, which is what I do, which is from 2 to 11. So I go in at 2, we have an editorial meeting, and that kind of essentially entails what everybody is working on, the reporters, you know, what stories the reporters are going to go live at, whether that be, you know, obviously now we have a duopoly, so we're not only NBC, but we're also CBS. So we have to cover 2 shows, and that's a lot of different shows. So we have to make sure that there's content, fresh new content or fresh new stories in every single show. So for us, we have the 4 p.m., we have the 6:30, and then we have the 10. So those are our main shows for the NBC side. Obviously, we have the CBS side, which is the 5, 6, and the 10. So we have that editorial meeting. We talk amongst ourselves, you know, who's doing what. After that is done, then the producers, depending if the producers are there or not, then we have to start essentially stacking the show, right? So what is the most important information? What's the one that's going to be our top story? And, you know, assign the shots and the video and all that stuff. So really a lot of time goes into putting all of the news together and putting the shows together. And like you had mentioned, everything is very time sensitive. So we have to be out, you know, by 8 minutes, you know, or else it doesn't count in, you know, in the ratings world. And then we have to be back in for the B block and the C block and the D block and, you know, all that stuff. So a lot of time sensitive stuff. So once the producer's doing that, the anchors like myself, I will help write. So we'll help write the stories. So if we do get a press release, or let's say we go to an interview, we start writing that and putting the most important information, whether it be like a 5-minute interview, we're putting it in 30 seconds, right? The most important information, 30 seconds, because we have to make sure that the show's flowing. But while she's doing that, we do these things called topicals. So we'll tease the most important stories that we're doing for the day that will go on social media, that will go on air. They're about 15 seconds. After that is done, in between that, if I'm not writing, I'm making phone calls, I'm setting up interviews. Sometimes I'll go out on shoot, so I'll shoot my own stories. I'll go edit, write that. And then by around 6 o'clock, I'm reading the entire show. Making sure that there's, you know, no spellings, you know, make sure that, you know, if something's not written correctly, I rewrite it. After that is done, then you go into the studio around, I want to say like maybe 6:15, put on your mic, put on your ISB so that you can hear the producers. You do your shots, you check, and then we're on air by 6:29, and then we're on the airwaves by 6:30. And then we essentially do that again once the show is over. We start producing a new show for the 10. And then by the time that's done, then my day is over. So a lot of different things, but that happens in between from 2 to 11.
Yeah, and what do you think? What would you say is something that you enjoy most about your position?
I think that every day is different. Like the news is never the same. Mm-hmm. Every day is so different. You really don't know what's going to be the top story. You don't know if it's going to be, you know, something the president said, or, you know, something that's locally happening here. So it really just depends. Like you never really know. Obviously your tasks are the same, but the news is never the same. And I think it's always kind of like, what are we going to be covering today? What are we going to be informing people about today? I think it's really cool.
Awesome, thank you. Ms. Reyna, you know, what does a typical day look like at work? And, you know, what do you like most about your job?
Well, I think there's no typical day when you're in news, because every day, I mean, you may wake up at 9 a.m. and you're already thinking, no, I'm going to do this today. And then it's 2 p.m. and there's breaking news, and you have to finish the story that you were already working on and start working on the other one because maybe it's more important, or you also have to get it out the same day. But I think what I do every day is I have to wake up. I read the news because you have to know what's happening locally and what's happening nationally. And sometimes I read the news from Mexico too, just to know, because we're here at the border. So every day I have to read the news, I read the paper. And now that we're no longer going to the newsroom, it's kind of different, because there we would talk with each other like, hey, what are you working on today? You need help, or maybe you want to switch stories. And now you're just like home, and you have to look more for stories, because there when you're in the newsroom, you hear tips, you hear all these things going on. And then when you're at home, you have to be on the lookout for those stories. So I wake up, I read the news, and then I'm on Facebook looking at the events or looking at the city commission's Facebook page. And then if I see something, I have to send my budget to my editor. Like, hey, good morning. It has to be done before 11 a.m. that you send your budget of what you're going to be working on. I'm going to be working on this today. Let me know if you need anything else. And then I have to email or call the person that I need to interview for the story. And sometimes that's the hardest part, getting them to have the time to do the interview for you, even though it takes 10 minutes, but there's people that they're always super busy because they have meetings and they have all these things that they have to attend. But the good part is that since it's not television, you can get a phone call. I just need to ask you a few questions. You just get a phone call, you record it, and you have your quotes. You don't need them to be on a Zoom call. You don't need anything. So that's okay. So you have the interview, and then you have to do transcriptions. So you transcribe the whole interview and you have it there on file. And then you write the story, you submit it before 4 p.m. and then your editor reads it, and maybe they're gonna have a question like, hey, I didn't understand this. Can you explain it more? Or can you take out this quote? Or can you do this? Can you do that? And then that's pretty much what I do at 4. And then sometimes I help with the web. So after 7 p.m., when all of the reporters submit their stories and they're already edited and they have the photos, I put them on our website. So I put them on the web and then I share them on our Facebook page. And we also do Facebook Lives when there's city meetings or when there's a press conference for the coronavirus or things that are going on. So that's what I do on a day. For example, yesterday, at 9 a.m. I already knew what I was going to be working on. I did the interview early and everything. And then I got a WhatsApp and a person was like, hey, I was reading the 30 under 30 by Forbes. And there's a guy from Brownsville. I'm like, what? So can I have the information? So I was looking for the cell phone, email, and everything to contact him and get the story out yesterday. So there's not typical day, but that's what I like the most because I never know what's going to happen. I'm not on the same place every day, and I'm always writing something different. So that's what I like the most, that you never get bored, even though you're gonna be, because I have people in the newsroom that they've been there 25 years, 30 years reporters, and now they're editors. And I'm like, what is it that you like the most? Do you see yourself doing this all your life? And they're like, yes, like I've been a reporter for all these years and never 2 days have been the same. It's always different. It's always fun.
Thank you so much for sharing. Mr. Burkhart.
Yeah, so a typical day for me, and I can empathize with Lynda. It's a lot of meetings in the mornings, always in the mornings. But for me, like I said, sort of it's like 50-50.
Right.
Most of my marketing work component is just kind of reviewing our campaigns, looking at our targeted advertisements, seeing what's working, what's not, focusing our budgets through that. The second option that I work on is really just sort of creating those either those incentives or those programs for small businesses to flourish here in Brownsville. One of the things that we've done recently was we created the Startup Texas program. This was able to draw at least 12 startup companies into Brownsville to try to compete for funding. A few of which that were successful are companies that range from like a Latina inspired and empowered brand. Genziano Designs was one of our winners. We also have like a topographical company that does like topographical maps of the moon, as well as like weather patterns on the moon for moon missions. And this is all not just by chance. This is all just through like our efforts at BCIC of trying to create an ecosystem of entrepreneurship here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Moving along, Ms. Lopez, as we spoke about in your bio, you are an Emmy Award-winning journalist. That's pretty amazing. Currently, you are serving as the Executive Director of Advancement and Marketing. Journalism is journalism and marketing is marketing. Could you kind of define the difference between the two and maybe what the biggest adjustment was for you to switch between the two?
Two totally different worlds. Listening to Ms. Clara and Ms. Nubia has really brought back a lot of memories this morning. I was a journalist for almost 20 years, a TV journalist and broadcaster. I anchored shows in Washington, D.C. I was a reporter. I traveled a lot. And I had a very, very amazing career. I did very, very well at it. I was the first Hispanic on television in Washington, D.C. And the number one question I would get from people is, because I didn't look like all the anchor women. You know, all the anchor women were blonde and blue-eyed, and I was exotic looking to the community there. And I would get, the number one question would be, what country do you come from? Because they'd never seen a Hispanic on television there. I did have a lot of advantages because I was bilingual and was able to get lots of stories that nobody else could get in that market. I transitioned out of television into marketing, not because I wanted to, but because I needed to. I adopted my niece and nephews. My oldest was 4 and the twins were 2, because their parents were into drugs. And my message to you as students out there is that nothing can derail dreams faster than drugs. And so I had to step up and take in my niece and nephews. And I had them in Washington, D.C. with me for a couple of years until I realized this was not working out. Because when you work for the network, when you work for television, news doesn't happen between 9 and 5. News happens when it happens, and that could be in the middle of the night. And I had a nanny, I was single, I had a nanny living with us, and I would have to leave in the middle of the night because there was a plane crash in Philadelphia or a train crash, or I covered cops in courts. And so there was always something going on. Riots, I had to be out all night long, or bad weather. I had to go to a hurricane in North Carolina. So I would leave in the middle of the night and my kids would wake up and they were like, where's, the person who's supposed to be taking care of them? And so as we bonded and as I realized I wasn't doing it right and I wasn't doing them justice, and I had made a commitment to raise them and be a mother, and I wasn't doing the mothering thing right. And so I transitioned into television. And the lessons that I will want to share with you young people out there is a couple of them. One, again, I would stress this, the drugs will derail your dreams. Know that right now. The second one is that sometimes in life, you're going to get thrown curveballs, and you will have to make adjustments, and you will have to redefine your dreams and your idea of success. And you will have to pivot. And hopefully, if you do it all for the right reasons, you will end up where you need to be. And I know now my kids are grown up. They're young, amazing people. They're brilliant, they're bright, they're funny. And I'm very proud of the decision I made to leave television and find another way to make a living and to be the mother that I needed to be at the time. Now, having said all that, and I know I'm being a long-winded here, and I apologize and for that, but what I learned from it all is that it's not always about the destination. A lot of times we go through life going, oh, I'm going to be this and I'm going to be the best at it, because I did that for much of my life. I was very focused on my career. Family was always second to me until I got the kids. But what I learned, I'm 61 years old now, very proud to be 61 years old, very proud to still be here. And what I've learned is that it's not always about the destination, but it's about who you're traveling with in this world. And that, I think, has been emphasized this past year with everything that we've gone through, that family for everything, and that the people that your family, your friends, and being loved and loving and is a priority in this world. Being kind, being good, those are important things. Being successful is wonderful, and it can enhance your life and your career. But there's other things that are just as, if not more important. And finally, just to end it all, the one thing that I miss the most about my TV days, and it's not being famous or being recognized on the streets and stuff, because that happened all the, you had no privacy a lot of times. But the thing that I missed is that sometimes there would be there's a big story. It doesn't happen as often now because I've been out of the business for almost as long as I was in it. Been out of the business 18 years. But sometimes a big story happens and I'm like, want to be there so bad. I should be there. I could do it better than that reporter. So yeah, I still have it in me I miss it sometimes, not those snowstorms and hurricanes, but once in a while, there's a good story out there I wish I could get my teeth into.
Thank you so much for sharing, Ms. Lopez. Ms. Clara, kind of going off of that, I think journalism has changed dramatically, especially in the last 4 years. We've seen the phrase fake news become popular regarding journalism and journalists. Given the political climate in which we're currently living in, how difficult is it doing your job as a journalist, knowing people could call your reporting fake or inaccurate simply because they disagree with it?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I just want to give, kudos to Lynda for doing that, because honestly, TV, like she had mentioned, is very, either male or white female, and there's really not a lot of Latinas on the screen. And so to even have somebody that was on the screen that is Hispanic or Latina descent is huge. And obviously, if you haven't watched our newscast, we have 2 female anchor Latinas. That hasn't happened, I don't think, anywhere in the country. So, just we're progressing, and I think that's awesome. But back to your question on the fake news, it was really hard going into journalism, I think, when President Trump won, because there was so much rhetoric about journalists at the time. So, when you're so excited, right? Once you graduate college and you're going to go into your first reporting job, right? And I don't think there was ever this type of like rhetoric of fake news or you're lying to us, right? And then you go into your job and then you start to hear, the president say that you're fake news, you're the enemy of the people, you shouldn't be trusted, like all these things. It's a little discouraging, but I think local journalism is so important. So, I know we might not be sometimes on the national level. Sometimes we are, obviously, because we're here on the border, we have been. But locally, I think is so important. We'll get those people every once in a while that don't like what they hear, and they just say that we're lying, that it's not true, right? Just these things. One thing they always tell us is like, never read the comments on social media. Don't read the comments, because they'll hurt you, or maybe you want to say something back, and they tell people to refrain so you don't have to say anything back. Like, don't read the comments. I read my comments, right? Because I like to engage with people, and if they have a question or if they think that that's something wrong, I'm the type of person who says, these are the facts and this is what's happening. But it has been a little difficult, I think, discouraging sometimes. I think there was an instance one time when I was in Oregon as a reporter. We were about to do a live shot. Somebody drove by and said, "You're fake news and you're lying to everybody," like right before our live hit, right before we were live on TV. And obviously we just kind of like had to shake it off and continue on to what we were going to say. So I think as journalists, and Nubia probably understands this too, and Lynda does, you just have to keep with your goal. You know that you're not, telling a lie. Obviously, you're doing so much time, you're investing so much time in a story, and to uncover the facts and go through these public records, go through editors to make sure that things are okay before you even publish the story. So I think, people will understand, or some people won't understand the industry, but at the end of the day, I think if you're a local journalist and you're proud of your work and you know that you have integrity and you continue to have the ethics that a lot of journalists follow, then I don't think you have anything to worry about. It is discouraging sometimes, but I think you just have to continue to say to yourself, like, you are doing good work and your work matters, because if you're not going to uncover it, who else is going to uncover it? And I think that's kind of how I've been navigating the whole fake news era in the last 4 years.
Thank you so much for sharing. And Nubia, I noticed that you were shaking your head a lot and you were kind of agreeing. Do you have a similar experience with this? Care to add to the discussion?
Well, yes. I mean, I've been a reporter for newspapers since I was in high school. I was in high school and I was at the student newspaper we had there. When I was in college, I was also at the student newspaper. And now that I'm doing my master's, I'm working at a newspaper. So I've been doing this, even though I'm only 25, I've been doing it for 10 years. So And you would think that when you're in school, you don't get like hate emails, but I actually did. When I was in college, I was at the student newspaper, and Trump has recently gotten elected. And then he said all these things against women, and then against Mexicans, and against immigrants. And I'm like, I'm a Latina, I'm female, I'm a feminist, I'm an immigrant, and I'm Mexican. I'm everything he hates. So I remember I did a column, and the headline was, Make America Great Again. Wait, when was it ever great? And then I did all the story about all these women that were really getting elected and breaking all these glass ceilings. And I was in college, and then I got emails from other college students telling me, go back to Mexico, you're fake news. And I was barely like 19. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm already experiencing all these things. No, I was like 21, yeah. I'm already experiencing all these things, and I'm not even out in the real world already. I'm here in school where people are getting educated and they're working towards something. And I'm thinking, what are they working towards? Because when you're a journalist, you're like, before it will be like, you have to be impartial. You don't take sides. You never show your opinion because you're representing the news. But now I feel like you cannot stay quiet. You have to take a side. You cannot be on the side of the oppressor. You have to be helping those who don't have a voice, those who are marginalized. And you have to be true. Always, you never report fake news, like people call it. You always report true news. But I think that now it's a time where you have to take a stand, and you have to help those who need it.
Yes. I'm so glad you mentioned all that. And to kind of piggyback off of what you were saying about how you've been working in newspapers for 10 years, you know, I also graduated with a degree in journalism. I acquired it in 2018 from Texas Tech University. And I can guarantee you that in every single journalism class I took in Lubbock, every single one of my professors would talk about how newspapers were slowly dying, how they were declining, and how in 10, 20, 30 years, the need for them will evaporate. What is your take on that, working at the Brownsville Herald? How would you describe the industry, and like, where do you see it going?
I think that there's always going to be a need for journalists. There's always going to be a need for writers, because people need to have someone they believe, someone they trust to get their information from. Because right now, everyone can be a journalist. Everyone can try to be a journalist. They can be out somewhere, they're seeing something, they take out their phone, they post it, and then it goes viral. But who is that source? Or sometimes they post videos when something is happening, and everyone is like, look what happened yesterday. And then you look for more information and everything, and it's an old video, or it didn't even happen in your city. So I think there's always going to be a need for writers, for journalists. And I don't think newspapers are dying. They're going to learn, we're still learning how to adapt to digital. We have now with Twitters, we publish breaking news on Twitter, on our web. And now we focus more on the web than on the actual print newspaper. And I think that journalists have to adapt. For example, now that I'm a reporter, I have to know how to do live videos for our Facebook page. I have to answer the messages that we get on Facebook. I have to answer the emails. I have to be posting on Twitter. When I'm covering a trial, I have to be posting, this is happening, this is happening. And those are things that journalists from 20 years ago didn't have to think about. They would just write their story, and that was it. So I think as long as journalists learn how to adapt and they learn more things, there's always going to be a need, because people are always going to want to get their news, their information from someone they trust.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing. I really, that's very interesting. I love that perspective. Mr. Nate Burkhart, you know, Brownsville continues to grow and open new businesses. And in your position, you get to see firsthand the startups, right? What kind of challenges do you see? And if somebody is interested in becoming an entrepreneur in the Rio Grande Valley, what advice would you give them?
Sure. I think the biggest challenge right now for anyone is just access to capital. That's always been a problem. But right now we're in a unique position where just 4 years ago, the increase in entrepreneurship from immigrants. Right now, like 1 in 4 entrepreneurs is an immigrant. Furthermore, but the access to capital there is really at, 10% of those can actually access capital. So So that's kind of why we're trying to develop this ecosystem that has these grants or incentives for those who can't access capital in the traditional ways that they're used to. But as for the startups that are coming in, what we like to say at BCIC is we like to invest in the human capital of our community. So rather than trying to like look and get like an Amazon or a big box store to kind of move in and that be the workforce development, if you will, we kind of look to see who's already doing something amazing and try to like encourage them to either stay or kind of offer incentives and programs to have them flourish and scale. And one of those companies is homegrown from some students here at UTRGV. They've actually developed a leak system detection system for oil and pipelines that's 200 times better than what's currently on the market. And, you know, they can easily leave to Silicon Valley or Houston to get that capital and move that company over there. But we were able to catch them early. We were able to like help them facilitate themselves here in Brownsville, and so that they can actually start that company here and start collecting graduates and really scale up. That's sort of the direction that we really want to take, not just Brownsville, but the whole valley. And everyone here is talking about journalism, and while I don't have experience in that, what I can say is that being able to share these stories, these success stories of our community, really kind of bring home the idea that anything is truly possible here in the valley. Maybe not 20 years ago, but right now it is. And in another 20 years, it's going to be even better. The only other thing that I'd like to kind of point out is just that to answer your last question, if anyone really is looking to start a business, look to your local EDC or your chamber. Start there. They're going to give you the bare bones knowledge, and from there you'll be able to kind of move on or kind of talk to somebody who would be able to help you find what you're looking for.
Yeah, well, I think Brownsville is well on its way towards that. So thank you for sharing. Ms. Lynda Lopez, you know, we are currently living through unprecedented times due to COVID-19. How has your job changed since the pandemic began?
We have been working remotely since last spring. So we're going, and we've announced just recently that we're going to continue remote learning and working remotely through this coming spring 2021. It is unprecedented. It is, you know, it has just turned our worlds upside down, as we all know. We've had to all hone our technology skills. Our world is Zoom, Zoom, Zoom all day long now. It's been a little difficult. We have been successful in doing the work that we do. It's not the same as being in the same room brainstorming. The work that we do requires creative minds to get together and toss ideas and, you know, and feed off each other's energy, and you don't really get that anymore. So it's a little more difficult. We've managed to make it work. And in many ways, for my team, it has created more work, because part of my challenge and our team's challenge is to, even while we're apart, to find some connectivity with our students, make sure that our faculty and our students are connecting. So it means more videos, it means more interaction on social media. It means it's actually created more work for us in many ways. So it's been interesting, it's been challenging. I think everything that we've learned through this will certainly change the way we will work in the future. I predict that we won't all have to come into the office every day. You know, especially like some of my staff members who live in McAllen. I think that they will, you know, administration will see that, hey, it isn't, you know, it is not necessary for them to come into the office every single day, make that long drive. And, you know, and there's something to be said to reward your employees, and maybe a couple of days a week they'll get to work from home. I mean, that's what I envision for our future, that we'll do things a little differently. It has been a learning experience, certainly for all of us.
Absolutely. Same question for you, Ms. Benitez.
Yeah, so a lot of Zoom, you know, you see more Zoom on TV now, interviews. I think the biggest challenge for us was trying to produce a newscast when we're at home. I think that was the biggest challenge. So if you probably saw anchors or reporters still to this day at their houses, right? Recording, going live, which was never done before. That wasn't something that you would do. You know, you anchor at a studio, that's where you do everything. And but I think that was the biggest challenge for us. It was kind of crazy during this time. We merged two newsrooms, and the company that I work for was set to launch the two newsrooms this year. So even though there was restrictions, pandemic, everything, that was still happening. So reporters essentially just were working from home, so they weren't coming into the office anymore. Anchors and producers had to stay in the newsroom. We obviously, everybody's socially distanced, so there's a lot of people still in the newsroom, but we have to wear our masks, obviously, while we're in there. And everybody is about 6 feet apart, so nobody's sitting next to each other. Obviously, we don't have any gatherings anymore like we used to. Big press conferences, right, that we're covering also, now they're being, taking place via Zoom, so we just have to record it. There is no, when you would go to press conferences, you would all, get together with the reporters that you would see, and kind of have this little conversations. There really isn't a lot of that anymore. Everybody's so separate. For a time, there really was no sports. So our sports reporters and anchors had no content. There wasn't even professional sports. So they couldn't even talk about professional sports. So they were helping our digital teams. They were helping either do a report. If there were sports, they were doing a report. A lot of also, and then obviously now until sports is back, now they're doing things a little bit more differently, right? Wearing masks and trying to social distance as well. So just a lot of different things have changed, I think, in the media industry, but a lot of Zoom. Obviously, I still, when I do my, if people feel comfortable, I'll still be able to do my interviews with people. I'll either just tell them to wear their mask. Obviously, we won't shake hands. We'll just kind of, hi, good to see you. We'll sit down, I'll mic them up, and we'll do it that way. But a lot of people aren't still comfortable with doing that. So that's why you're still going to see a lot of stories with via Zoom. And I think it kind of takes, I wouldn't say that the authenticity of the story, but a little bit, because you want to see the emotions of people. I think like compared to like on a screen, right? It just, things are changing a lot. But one good thing is that our editorial meetings are now via Zoom. So they're very quick. They used to be, I think, like 30 minutes because everybody wanted to chime in and everybody wanted to say, well, what about this story and this story? Now it's literally 2-3 minutes and, this is what everybody's doing and we're out of there. So things have gotten a little bit more efficient for us, but things have definitely changed just with technology.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Ms. Reyna.
A lot of things also have changed for us as a newspaper reporters, because since everything you have to write it, everything is written, a lot of the story is about what you see. For example, if you're doing a profile on someone, you would go to their house, you would go to their office, and then you will describe that he has photos of his family on the desk, that he was wearing this, he was wearing that, and that he smiled, that he laughed. And a lot of the times, now you don't have access, or you cannot see what they're doing, how they're reacting, how they're moving, and you cannot add that to the story. So it's also taking a lot of that from us. And also another thing is that, like Lynda said, I don't think there's going to be a need for all of the reporters to go back to the newsroom every day. Because my editor told me, I don't know how next year is going to look like, because now we notice that reporters don't have to be here 9 to 5 in the newsroom, and they're more efficient at home. So a lot of the things have changed. And also, I think for us as reporters, we never stopped working, even though in March and April, when the coronavirus was barely hitting the RGB, we were out there covering the the protests that we had in the downtown area for George Floyd. So we're doing all these things. We're going to hospitals covering those stories. And it also made us think about when people would say, yes, I want to do the interview with you. You can come to my house. I would also think like, oh, I don't know if I want to go because probably that person, he has been at home, but me, I've been out at press conferences. I've been out working. So you think of that and also seeing your family. So do you think more about where you want to go because you don't know, like you don't know if you have the virus, you don't have any symptoms, even though you wear your mask, you social distance. I still don't want to risk people.
Absolutely. Mr. Burkhart?
I'm so sorry. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, not a problem. So
It's changed 3 times.
Yeah, so we're living in crazy, crazy times because of COVID-19. How would you say your job has changed since the pandemic began?
My job really hasn't changed too much, other than just having to work from home. What I can say is that internally we had quite a few incentive programs for other businesses or other opportunities, but we quickly changed all of that to create COVID-19 emergency loans for small businesses. We created a grant program. We created a forgivable loan. We're still now going through those applications. We've received a whole lot of help from the Chamber of Commerce, from our partners over at the City of Brownsville and Greater Brownsville Incentives Corporation as well, to kind of mitigate some of the phone calls and the applications themselves. But I'd say the biggest change that we've had to do is restructure our funding so that we can provide some emergency relief to our small businesses.
Yeah, and it seems, when you read the national stories, you hear about shutdowns for different states. The first thing that people think of is small businesses and how many small businesses are struggling to stay alive and to have some sort of income. Have you seen that personally with any businesses here in the Rio Grande Valley or Brownsville? Yeah,
unfortunately, we can't rely on the feds as much as we'd like, and that has been proven. It's unfortunate, but it's been proven this year in quite a hard way. We have been able to save quite a few of the small businesses, but there's so many that were already operationally, they were not prepared for something like this. No one really was, but there's so many that weren't. And the only benefit I see to this moving forward is that it's forced everyone into the digital age. It's forced people to kind of look at, if you're not going to be accepting credit cards, maybe you use some sort of like a cash app, if you will. It's changed the mindset of you can continue to not operate digitally, you have to now. So that's at least one benefit to that. But it is still heartbreaking to see some of these long established businesses not get the help or support that they need, but unfortunately can't qualify due to a lot of federal regulations.
Yeah, thank you so much for putting that into perspective for our students, because like I said, these are just unprecedented times with this COVID-19 pandemic.
It's forced everything to be hyper-localized is what I'd say. It's even just the support for small businesses is now just really falling back on the local municipalities more so than the federal government.
Thank you so much for that. Ms. Lynda Lopez, if a student is interested in pursuing a career in the multimedia and communications industry, what could they do right now in high school to better prepare themselves?
I almost made the Zoom sin of getting my mic going. The number one thing that I would encourage students to do right now is to hone their writing skills. On a marketing team, the writing skill is the one underlying skill that every single person, no matter what their actual job duty is, has to have some knowledge, and they become more valuable to me and to marketing directors if they have writing skills that they can contribute to the team. Obviously, your reporters on the team, I have reporters, and they have to hone their writing skills. But even my graphic designers, who are artists at heart and they create pictures, and they also need to write clever slogans to accompany the graphics. My social media experts, they not only have to know TikTok and Instagram and all of that, they have not only take good pictures, they have to have good, clever posts to write along with it. And the same thing with my video guys. My video guys have to write the commercials, and they have to write videos to, write the scripts to accompany the videos. So for me, the number one thing that students can do right now is hone their writing skills, and they can do that by keeping journals, by writing letters, by writing emails. When you write emails, the number one sin there is hitting send before you've reread your email. Reread your emails, people. I have a pet peeve about that. The other thing you can do is the best writers are great readers. The more you read, you expand your vocabulary, and don't just go past a word you don't know what it is. Look it up, figure out what it is, and then try to use it in your everyday speech. So read and write. That's the basics to become a journalist, to go into marketing, hone your speaking skills. Every opportunity you get to do an oral presentation, take advantage of that and take it seriously, because speaking skills they are an absolute plus no matter what business you end up in. So again, reading, writing, speaking skills, that's what they can work on right now.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Ms. Benitez?
Yeah, so I can talk more of like the broadcast journalism route. So if in high school, if you have newspaper, photography, videography, anything where you can create videos or graphics, I would take that class because it will only help you get the skills at least right now, and then you can improve on them later if you go on to secondary. If you go to a junior college, or if you go to a 4-year, you'll be able to just already know the skills and just kind of better them. At my high school, I had none of that. I had no newspaper. I think we had yearbook, but I really wasn't into photography at the time. So really, I learned all my skills in college, was at the journalism school. And I learned, how to shoot, how to edit, how to write, but essentially write in a very concise manner, right? Because like we were talking about, you know how to write for I think, for print or digital, you have to write, there's more writing, right? You can put more detail into it. But for broadcast, you really have to know what shots are going to go well with what you're saying. And you have to make sure that your writing is clear, and you can put all of that information in 1 minute or 1 minute and 30 seconds. So I think right now, if you can take a videography class, really know what makes a good shot. Even just making videos online, if you go on vacation and you have a little GoPro or with your phone, you can make packages out of your cell phone. I mean, that's a lot of reporters are doing that now. So just really, and then obviously I think everybody knows how to do Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, right? Just continue to keep up with those. I'm not on TikTok, but I'm pretty sure that we'll probably go on TikTok later on. I know I think like the Washington Post and other people do that. So a lot of news organizations are starting to do a lot of the social media and obviously go that way too. So anything that you can learn, video, photography, social media, I would learn that now.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, Ms. Benitez. Ms. Reyna?
I think I would say the most important thing is to learn Spanish, but the correct Spanish way that you need for the news, because that's a demand that's growing right now, and it will continue to grow as the years go by. And I used to think that by living here in Brownsville, living here in the Valley, Spanish wasn't that important, like to add in my resume, oh, I'm bilingual, I have a degree in translation. But it actually is. I'm the only bilingual reporter in the Brownsville Herald, even though we're here in Brownsville, because a lot of the reporters, they come from other cities to work here because they want to cover migration, they want to cover the migrant camp and all the things that are going on here. And that need grows more as you go up. So I would say learn Spanish, learn the correct way, don't think that just because you know the Spanish that we speak here, you're already bilingual. So try to take some classes or maybe read books in Spanish so you can read the news in Spanish too and see the news in Spanish so you can learn more about that. And also I would say, don't focus on just one thing. For example, I already knew that I wanted to be a writer. I already knew that I wanted to be in newspapers, but still when I was in high school, I was in the television team. I was in the yearbook. I was in the lit club. So I was in all these other things that were going to help me. So don't focus on just one thing. Don't think, oh, I want to do television. I'm just going to be in the television club. So learn as much as you can about everything, because the more you know, the more valuable you are as a reporter.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Mr. Burkhart, if someone's interested in going into marketing, what could they do right now in high school to better prepare themselves?
I'd agree with what everyone said. The only thing I think that was missing or left out was learning HTML, or just like learning how to build a website. It's really cheap to go on to GoDaddy, buying a domain, building your own website, because while you can learn everything that we've just asked you to learn, if you don't have a portfolio that can kind of showcase all of your talents or everything that you've done, it'll kind of make it harder for you to sell yourself. So if you can kind of start early, you'll be going into college with, your own website as a resume, showcasing all the fun stuff that you had playing around, whether that be, graphic design, film editing, maybe a couple of your like high school journalism pitches, anything that can kind of showcase yourself. But if you can do that on a website, you can also do that. You can build a website for somebody else, and that's, revenue right there. But that's probably the one thing I'd recommend is learning HTML, having fun with it, playing around. There's so many YouTube tutorials on everything that all of us have just talked about. It's a different world than it was when I was in high school. So I take advantage of it for sure.
So thank you so much for sharing that. I want to squeeze in really one more question before we open it up to questions from our audience, just about where the industry is going. Miss Lynda Lopez, we'll start with you. We talked about virtual, Zoom, virtual. We talked about all that, but is this going to be something that you think is going to last more than just the pandemic? Where do you see the industry of multimedia and communications going? Because it seems like it's so vital nowadays.
Absolutely, it is, and I kind of hinted at this earlier. I do see that we will see changes, and we will adopt a lot of the things that we have learned over the past year, and incorporate that into the way we're going to do business in the future. We won't always be in the same, conference room. It won't be mandatory for us to be face to face, because we know it can work the other way. We'll all be more. As the gentleman mentioned, as Nathan mentioned, we've all been forced to, whether you wanted to or not, you're forced into the digital world. And I'm one of those that I would, I need help. Somebody will, now I can't yell for help because my staff's not in my bedroom. So I've had to learn, to be more technology efficient. I think we would be remiss in not saying, and not to be negative, but to be aware, to make you all aware that marketing jobs are very competitive, like TV jobs. They're very coveted jobs. They're very competitive. A lot of the marketing, and I worked at the University of Texas Pan American, and a lot of the marketing graduates from there would end up in sales jobs because there weren't not enough marketing positions, and they weren't willing to leave the valley. I would urge students who are going into marketing to, number one, be the best that you can be, because it is a competitive field, and only the best will have the better jobs and be the most successful, be the directors, be the anchors, be the investigative journalists, so you've got to really work on your skills. It's not good enough to just have the degree. You've got to be the best at it. The other thing that I encourage or say to students is that the industry is always changing, and don't listen always, because since I got in the business in 1980, we were told, oh, the journalism is changing, it's going to go away, and it did change. When I first got to Washington, D.C., we were a 4-man band. You had a light man, a sound man, cameraman, a sound man. You traveled with 4 guys that made you look beautiful everywhere you went, you know. Well, nowadays, I mean, fast forward, 40 years, and our reporters are carrying around their own cameras and taking pictures of themselves. And so the industry is changing. You have to change with it. Be flexible. Learn, somebody mentioned this, I think it might have been Miss Nubia, learn all the skills, because you have to be multi-talented no matter what you're doing. You have to, it's not enough to be the writer. You got to know enough about graphic design. You got to know social media. All of us have to be really well-versed in social media because it's playing such a critical role. Be flexible, move with, change is not bad, go with it. And if that's a lesson we've certainly learned this past year.
Yeah, thank you so much. Ms. Benitez, where do you see the industry going, given that so many people are currently living in a virtual world?
So yeah, like what they mentioned, even in college, they said, the industry is changing, or a lot of people said, oh, it's dying. I don't think it's dying. I think it's just changing, and we have to change with it. She had mentioned she used to have 4 people that would shoot, edit, write a story, or, do the story. Now it's just me by myself. I shoot, write, I edit, I do everything. So just make sure that you learn as much as you can so that you can say, I can also do that too. Or you can say, oh, well, we have to do that too. Well, it's fine because I already know how to do it. You don't want to be the last person to be learning everything, right? You just kind of want to be proactive with things. But I think I see, maybe on stories, if it's not a local story, I think people will use Zoom more often. I don't think it's going to go away. I think we're going to start using Zoom a lot. I think it's going to be in a lot of stories. And, if something is breaking or something is, changing and you need to be there faster, like it's in Brownsville and someone's in McAllen, I think we're going to use more technology to not try to miss certain events because we have this technology, we have our phones now. So I think instead of it being delayed, it's even just going to speed up the process of trying to get news even quicker, I think is what's going to happen.
Awesome, thank you. Ms. Reyna?
I think that the industry will continue to change. Once the coronavirus is over, I think we're gonna have another big change. I still don't know what's gonna happen, but I think that right now, all of us journalists, we miss being out with people. So I think that for a while, everyone is gonna be out, like, I wanna do this story, I wanna cover this, I wanna cover that. And then we're gonna have to learn to adapt again, to do news after COVID, because right now we're during COVID, and then there was a way we did it before COVID, and then we're going to have another way after COVID. But I think that being a reporter, a journalist, you have to be as flexible as possible, like Clara and Lynda said. You have to learn about everything, and I think that we should learn as much as we can and then don't complain when we do it. Because, for example, me, I'm a reporter, I write, but then sometimes I have to take my own photos, I have to edit my own stories, I have to put them in the web by myself. But I like doing that because I learn about how do we do it. And then, for example, our photographers right now they're writing stories too. So now they're learning to write. So I think that as long as journalists learn how to adapt, how to write, how to do their own photos, pretty much do everything by themselves, even though they're not going to be experts like a designer or an editor, but just knowing and learning, like, yes, I can do that, it's going to help them a lot to continue being in this industry. Because also being a journalist, finding a job in journalism is really hard. A lot of people go to PR instead because they cannot find one. So as long as you continue to learn, I think will be good.
Thank you. Mr. Burkhart, how is the industry, where do you see it going given the world that we're currently living in?
It's definitely going to stay very much the same. I think there's too much cost savings with meeting over Zoom. I can tell you right now, just with speaking with some of the people at the city of Brownsville, they're working on a master plan for certain areas of the city that normally these consultants would have to fly in, and that would be charged or billed. that's not happening anymore. And those cost saving measures are going to remain. Something that will go back though, I think, are the networking events. Zoom just doesn't cut it. And when things are safer, I think that will come back. But for the most part, I think 60%, 70% is still going to remain on Zoom.
Awesome. I think that's a great prediction and something that I think a lot of people would agree with. Moving on, students, this is kind of your time to shine. We want to make sure that we have time for questions from you guys. So please ask away. When asking your question, please address it to one of our professionals. You can, any one of our four you can make it out to, or you can just leave it out to anybody. They'll be more than happy to answer them. Also, let's try to do this in an orderly fashion. So a way that we can do it to kind of adapt to the whole virtual world is you can raise your hand in Zoom and I can call your name. At that point, you can, turn your camera on, ask your question with your mic turned off, with your mic turned on, I should say. You can do that way, or if you're a little bit more shy, you can type it in the chat box, whatever you feel more comfortable with. I just want to have time to make sure that these great panelists have time to answer these questions. So please, students, feel free to raise your hand, feel free to type it in the chat, whatever you feel more comfortable with. We definitely want to have some questions from you guys today.
Ms. Morales, while our students are thinking about their questions, as the career and college transition counselor of Harmony School of Innovation, Brownsville, I would like to ask the first question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Thank you. First of all, actually, huge thanks to Workforce Solutions of Cameron County to bringing to our school wonderful speakers. Thank you for that. And Ms. Lopez, Mr. Burkhart, and Ms. Reyna, Ms. Benitez, like the wonderful tips that you have given today to our students for their future careers. We are really thankful. And my question is about my my past. I was born in Turkey in 1990s. I went to Central Asia to teach. And while I was, teaching there, I spent more than 20 years. Like the first few years, I was, of course, homesick and wanted to watch what is happening in my country. And I was watching news, of course. And while you were watching the news, as Ms. Lopez was mentioning today, a plane crash there, and then train crash there, and then all the news that you are watching, it's like 90%, 95% are, unfortunately negative things. And about my country, I didn't want to hear, those things when you are outside of it. You want to hear something good. And it affected me very much. Most of the days, I was sad about my country. And you are living as journalists, like Ms. Benitez, Reyna, like Ms. Lopez was doing that. You are living this, in the negative, things. Sometimes you need to give, some maybe, the bad news, but you are very happy, and then, or on the contrary, you are, sad, but you need to give a good news. How does these things, affect the journalist?
I can go first. I think I'll do a good example. When this first started, things just essentially changed. Right, I was doing more investigation pieces, and then we got wind of the first deaths of COVID-19 taking place at the nursing homes, and I had to be in charge of looking up all of the violations for the past 3-4 years at each nursing home. I had to read reports. I had to reach out to family members. I had to do all these things, right? And it was a little depressing. And it did kind of affect me. I was sad. We hadn't seen this ever happen. The people at the nursing homes were the ones who were being affected the most. They were the ones who were passing away at the very first of the start of this. And so I think, at the end of the day, we are still human, and I'm still, a daughter, and see my daughter here. So you have to, I think, besides that, essentially you're still human, you know, you still have to sympathize with the people and make sure that, you know, when you are writing the story, when you are reading the story, or you're telling people, you show that emotion. I think it's really important to show that, you know, it's a sad story, you know, and why should people care about this? And I think besides that, I still keep touch with a lot of the people that I talk to, you know, reach out to them. Hey, how is your family doing? Hey, are you okay? I think that's important. And I don't know, it might be different for if you're covering like a national story, but locally, I think it was really hard for me. There was times that I got really sad, but then you have to listen. You have to, I think, remind yourself, you're telling these stories for a purpose. You want to make sure that people understand, people know, and maybe if somebody sees this, they'll want to advocate for change, or they'll want to do something different. And I think that's, you know, kind of my perspective on your question. So that answers it.
I'd like to add to that. You know, they say if you want good news, you need to live in a communist country. You know, they're going to give you a whole lot of good news. We fortunately are able to report freely, despite what one particular party might say. And the other thing that I'd like to point out is that while, you know, journalists get a bad rap and media get a bad rap, that, you know, that while we may cover a lot of negative stories, the media has the power to do amazing things and do great good in their communities. And, you know, I'm haunted still to this day by a story I did of a missing boy who was kidnapped, never found. His name was Junior Bradinsky. And every now and then, I wonder where Junior Bradinsky is. And I'll say a little prayer for him. But I also know that I did many stories in which children were missing and then they were found because the media got on it and we were involved and we were out there and we found that missing child. You know, I did a story in Washington, D.C. that changed the entire 911 system in that city. There was a Salvadoran woman who was raped and she only spoke Spanish and she called 911. And this is the story that I'm most proud of that I ever did in my entire life. And I did many that I'm proud of, but this is the one. She called 911. She only spoke Spanish and the operator said, you know, speak English. The operator didn't speak English on the 911 and they hung up on her. And she called again, hung up on her, called again, hung up on her 3 times. She hid in a closet until her brother got home. She had been beaten and raped. Her brother ran out to the streets and called police. And I found out about this woman. I was tipped off and I was able to interview her, the only journalist in Washington, D.C. who interviewed her. And because of that story and what I did with her, the entire 911 system was revamped. To this day, if you call 911 in Washington, D.C., it doesn't matter what language you speak. Like there's 181 languages that there will be an operator to answer your call. So journalism, journalists do great work every single day, and we need to not lose sight of that. There is great power in media and the medium of television and print.
Thank you very much. And I hope that after this pandemic, we will be more than happy actually to have you in person in our school. We would like to have that pleasure as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your question. Students, I can't urge it enough. If there's anybody who does have a question, feel free to type it in the chat, turn on your mic and ask yourself. You know, we want you to have time to ask that. We have one here from Miss Maite, I think. I don't want to pronounce your name wrong. She said, what is one of the biggest obstacles that you encountered through your career? Is this specific? Do you have a question like for a specific panelist? If so, who would you like to answer that question? If not, we can just leave it open for any one of our 4 wonderful panelists. Anybody care to answer that one?
just be open. I think one of the biggest obstacles for me, like you had mentioned at the very beginning, was navigating this journey of getting a job, going to college by myself. My parents are immigrants, so none of that, you know, they didn't go to college. They barely finished, I think, like elementary school, immigrated to the United States. So I think that was the biggest obstacle for me, was doing it by myself. But now, and I want to tell these high school students, you know, you have resources at your high school. You have people that care and that want to see you succeed. And that's kind of who helped me essentially go to college and help me with the financial aid process and be able to go to an out-of-state school, right? Because I'm from California, but I was able to go to a school in Arizona, and not, you know, graduate with any debt because I got so many scholarships. And so I think that if you're in high school right now and you think, well, maybe, you know, I don't know how to do it or anything like that, my parents maybe didn't do it, or you feel like you're in a different situation and you don't want to go, I think you should rethink that, and you should look at, you know, the teachers and the principals and, you know, these forums and the people that are speaking to really like help you. That was the biggest obstacle for me, but because of the people in high school, the counselors, people that were reaching out to us, and I asked for help, they were able to help me with those to get to the career. So that's a little bit beforehand. But I think that the career in itself is just moving away. I'm the furthest I have ever been to from my family. I haven't seen my family in like, it's going to be a year. I haven't been back to California in a year because of COVID. So I think that's been the most difficult thing, was moving away. In this industry, like you know, Nubia had mentioned, there's a lot of reporters that come in from different parts. I'm one of those reporters, right? I'm not from the Valley, but I've learned so much being here. But I think that's been the biggest obstacle, is really sacrificing your, you know, what you want to do, your career goals, and saying, okay, well, I can't get a job in California, but I know I can get a job in Texas, and maybe I should take it. So even though it's kind of an obstacle, it's also a good opportunity for you, because you're going to learn and you're going to grow. And I'm sure Lynda is probably the same thing, you know, moving to Washington, completely different, you know, compared to here. So, you know, she can probably like emphasize a little bit about that. But I think that's been one of the biggest obstacles, was, you know, moving away from home and being away from home and learning to do everything by yourself.
I would encourage people, if given the opportunity, to I know that our culture is very close to family, but always remember that you can go off and live an adventure, and you can always come home. And I'm certainly proof of that. I'm glad to be back in the Valley. You can always come home, but there is no learning experience in that, of leaving your community, your family, and going away, and not only learning about other people and other worlds, but you learn a lot about yourself. And one of the things that I learned about myself is to better appreciate my culture, being bilingual. I never appreciated speaking Spanish until I left here. I used to get so mad because if we crossed the border to Matamoros, back in those days, you could go back and forth. We'd go over there for dinner, and my dad had a rule that if you crossed the bridge, you had to speak Spanish, no more English. And I used to get so mad about that. My sister and I would, you know, complain about it, but it helped me hone my Spanish skills, which I later was able to use very, very successfully in my career.
Thank you. Miss Reyna, what is one of the biggest obstacles that maybe you've encountered throughout your career?
I think also it would have been leaving my home, leaving Matamoros, even though it's right here, just I can walk because I live downtown. I live in the downtown area. I think that's been hard because my family stayed in Matamoros. And even though it's just here, it's not the same. It's super different. The cultures are very different here in Brownsville and in Matamoros. So I think that was the hardest decision I had to make, to come here to Brownsville to start college and leave my family there in Matamoros. But at the same time, my advice would be, don't be afraid to leave your home, but also don't be afraid to stay. Don't think that because you're staying in the Valley, you're staying in Brownsville, that you're not going to succeed in your career. There's a lot of opportunities here, and a lot of more opportunities are growing. So just follow what you really want to do. If you want to leave, but if you also want to stay and make a change in your community, that's also very important.
That's a great way to put it, yes. Also, we have another question coming in. What advice would you give an introvert who wants to get into the industry. So someone who's maybe a little shy. You know, I didn't really blossom with communication skills until I was in middle school. When I was in elementary and most of middle school, I was very, very shy. But you know, I think that maybe some of our youth may be experiencing that, right? They may feel like they're a little shy and they're not, you know, crazy great communicators. They're still learning those skills because I learned them throughout high school. This is a question that's open to anyone. You know, what advice would you give someone who considers himself a little bit more shy and timid?
I think you skipped one question from Iris Hernandez.
Okay, so Miss Reyna, how can you describe your job? Yes.
Ever changing. I think that no day is the same, and that's what I love the most about my job. I think I would also describe it as helping someone. That's how you will describe journalism, because everything you do is, like Clara said, to give a voice to those who don't have a voice. And like Lynda said, the media is so powerful. There's a lot of times that there's people who haven't been heard or who haven't been helped, and then you do a story on them, and then they call you back 3 days later. I just want to thank you so much for doing the story, because now I got the help that I needed. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I think that's the best feeling ever, that you're helping people. So that's how I would describe my job, helping people.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. And thank you for letting me know. I didn't even see that question. So about the introvert, we have another question coming in from Ms. Morales. What advice would you give someone who's an introvert and they want to get into this industry? This question is open to anybody.
I guess I can kind of talk about this. I had a professor who was an introvert, but he said that journalism helped him with the communication skills, because it forces you to call people, it forces you to talk to people, it forces you, you know, to go in and get man on the street, right? Go get MOS from people who are just randomly walking somewhere, obviously post or pre-COVID. So I think even if you are an introvert, you could still be in the industry. You know, you probably have really good skills that you'll be able to give back, whether that be, you know, good writing, good shooting. There's people that, you know, I work with that might not be super out and extroverted, but do great work. So I think you just kind of have to, you know, push yourself a little bit. And I think that's what helps you, at least, you know, asking the questions, calling the people, forcing yourself to do that type of stuff. And you'll essentially, I think, develop the skills.
Thank you so much for sharing that. We have one final question coming in from Mr. Gonzalez Reyna. This is made out to you, Ms. Lynda Lopez. Where in the world might your job take you?
Well, I think it can take you anywhere you want to go. I would say set your goals. You know, one thing I would say is, well, back to setting your goals, be focused. Sometimes, you know, especially when you're younger, you kind of want to do all these different things. Hone in on, find exactly what you want, because you've got to have focus so you can get where you're going. The other thing is, I was, you know, I always thought when I started in this business that I would, as a journalist, that I would go, you know, because I was Hispanic, that I would go California where there were Hispanics, or Chicago where there were Hispanics, or you know, Florida, because a lot of Hispanics. And I was recruited by NBC by a guy who was, this is a true story, vacationing on the beach and saw me anchoring on television. And he said, he wrote me a letter, because this is before email, right? He wrote me a letter and said, what are you doing there? You don't belong there. NBC owns 5 stations. At the time, they owned 5. And he wanted me to come to Washington, D.C. And I remember telling him, I don't know if I want to go east. I want to go west. I didn't want to go to the East Coast. And it was just too white for me. And he said to me, he goes, you know, when you're good at what you do, you don't have to worry about being Hispanic or being a woman. And so I would say to all you young people out there, don't ever shortchange yourself. Don't ever say, oh, I can't do that because I'm Hispanic, or I can't do that because I'm a woman. You know, you can do anything you want to do if you set your mind to it. Set your goals, get focused, and make your dreams come true. And wherever those dreams may take you, that's up to you. Where do you want to go? I had no intention of going to Washington, D.C. An opportunity came up, and I thought long and hard. He's right. why, you know, I take a chance, and I did take a chance on myself, and I moved to Washington, D.C. not knowing a single soul. It was the best thing I ever did. It was an amazing experience. Highly recommend that you all visit there. It is our nation's capital, and everything is free there. All the tourists, the museums, everything is free. It's an amazing, amazing city. And again, the bottom line is you can go anywhere you set your mind to going.
Yeah, I can't think of a better way to end the forum with those words, Ms. Lopez. Thank you so much. You know, as one of the former chancellors at Texas Tech always said to us when we were Red Raiders, dream no little dreams. So again, it took a lot of collaboration to make this event possible. I'd like to thank the Community Engagement and Communications team at Workforce Solutions Cameron, the CEC team. Thank you to my supervisor, our manager, Ms. Luciana Morales, for all her help. I'd like to also thank the entire team, Ms. Gabby Masso-Mongrel, Ms. Carmen Barrera. Thank you for being amazing team players. Also, we have to thank Harmony Public Schools for your collaboration and having such wonderful students. And of course, thank you to our amazing, incredible panel experts, your inspiring words. Thank you so much for everything and talking about your experiences. I know it was so good for me to hear that and very inspiring. So thank you so much. Thank you again to everyone. And until next time, have a wonderful rest of your day and happy holidays, everyone. Be safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.